I want to ask you a little bit about sort of I know you've been on a retreat just recently. You have so many great, amazing opportunities coming up in 2025 to work with people. You've worked in jails, you've worked in hospice and in death transition. Would love to understand what you're seeing in your work. And I know
Hmm.
these are really very different expressions of lived experiences, but what are you observing? I mean, obviously, we're recording this in early February 2025, and there's a lot of chaos in the United States where we both live. But
Hmm.
what are you
Yeah.
seeing within humanity? Like, what are the messages that you're receiving and sort of what you're witnessing from the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I love that question. I'm going to try to weave my answer to that together with another comment on what you were just sharing, which I thought was really profound. But I felt like you were calling out the fact that we have our own personal journey that we're on. But again, it's always taking place within a broader system. And so, in my own journey, part of what I needed to come to terms with is like, yes, I need to shed my own masks. There's these operating patterns. It's um, achiever, perfectionist, people pleaser. Part of where that all came, yes, it was my own story. Yes, it was like my upbringing. Yes, it was my religious background, all these factors. And it also wasn't just my story. Um, I came across the work of William Jennings, who's a Yale Divinity School theologian, and he talks about this idea of he called this like the really the goal of whiteness and education is this idea of mastery, possession, and control.
Mm,
Mastery, possession, and control. And when I read that, I realized you could say patriarchy, you could say whiteness. I mean, these are all intertwined things. Or just you could say corrupt human, corrupt human expression. But this idea of mastery being like this, I got to dominate everything. Got to be the master, right? The control is I need to be in charge and I need to dictate how things happen. And the possession is I need to have everything. This insatiable appetite for more. And all those are very intertwined and overlapping. And I felt like part of my own story was the fact that what I needed to shed was, oh, I'm actually living in allegiance to that as well in my own ways.
mm,
And so, in terms of any shedding that we have to do as individuals, we have to recognize those broader forces that are at play. And, as it relates, I think part of why I name those things is I have this idea of the hero's journey in my title, and that this powerful recognition of a pattern can also be manipulated and is often seen in our culture. It's like it's an individualistic pursuit. It's about achieving more. It's about becoming the master and being on top of everything and ruling, and this sort of thing. But actually, the hero's journey, as I write about it, is it's vulnerable, it's
mm,
compassionate, it's connected to nature. It is nature. It's service oriented. These are all the opposites of that mastery, possession, control. And in the spaces that I'm in these days, and I count it's a great fortune to spend time with people at the end of life. And I go into these nursing facilities, and let's be honest, a lot of them, they're not in great shape. And there's a lot of loneliness. People don't have families, or if they do, their families have kind of forgotten about them. Or I'm in prisons, and obviously, you might have family visiting you, but you are on the edge of society if you're in a prison. Doesn't matter what got you there, you have been sort of cast out, right? And I go into these places, and or I was just at a retreat, and it was people who could spend a good amount of money to go to a really nice place, sort of exotic retreat center. Um, but I'm seeing the same thing in all these places, and here's what I'm seeing. I am seeing people like I see these nurses, I see these aides, I see the care. They might be exhausted, and guess what? Many of them are probably working many jobs. But when I can see the expressions of care and tenderness for those at the end of life who have all sorts of different identities from the caretakers, or I'm in prison and I see, yes, there's the system, and especially here in Wisconsin, it's just a mess. And it's really not about correcting. It's not about restoring. It's just punitive. But there are people in these systems, like I'm thinking of some of these project coordinators and social workers who are just like a bright light in these spaces. And I get to see all this, and it does give me this sense that like another way is possible, and not just that it is possible, that it's already emerging, and it always is emerging. So what's the story we're telling? Are we just telling the New York Times, CNN, Fox News story, which we say, oh, those are different stories. They're all telling the same story. Or are we going to tell this other story of like human connection and dignity and belonging and kindness? So I continue. Reminds me of something. I think Mr. Rogers tells the story about I think of his mother, like in times of crisis and disaster and chaos. She said, I think she said to him, like, look to the helpers, right? So you can always look to the helpers. I'll tell you, they're out there. They're all over the place. Um, so that gives me hope. Yes, we still need to do something about the system, but if we can't stay connected to that reality of love, care, belonging, we're just going to repeat. We're going to repeat the same thing. So the one other thing I'll add is, I'm thinking of a phrase a friend of mine once said to me is by when he had this phrase, he called it the secrets of the powerless.
Mm.
There are secrets, secrets of the dying. There are secrets of those incarcerated. This pure, essential wisdom that comes through if we can slow down enough to just pay attention to what's happening in all the unseen places. And guess what? A lot of these people, they don't have any certifications. They haven't gone on any wellness journey, but they know from in their heart wisdom and a way of being that's more profound than many of us can even fathom. Okay, that was a lot, Marley. Sorry.
Wow, that was epic. So there's so many, thank you so much for sharing all of that truth. And I have so many thoughts and reactions. I'd actually just recorded a blueprint where I was talking about what I call kind of the quantum. But I really deeply believe that there's like a frequency of knowledge that's available to anyone and everyone, and that we can access this wisdom and the reason for this is through space and time, and also even right in this now moment, I see people thinking and feeling and knowing the same things that you and I are talking about here at the same time across the world. And it's not lost on me that when Donald Trump won, I heard this is an acceleration of the unity timeline. And the other day, the term community came to me as common unity. And it is really about the physicality of holding the hands with our neighbors, standing on Mother Earth on solid ground in common humanity and with common love for each other, and with knowing that we as a collective are more powerful than any individuals or any governments or any entities. And the reason for that is, to your point about the mastery, the domination of patriarchal or those types of intentions through time are so wild to me because they are rooted so deeply in fear and scarcity. Like they
Yeah.
originate when you want to control someone else so deeply, it's because you lack control within yourself. You're trying to mirror that fear, that deep fear that somewhere along your life and your existence, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to keep informed on these interesting conversations and introspective insights. Further, if you hit like or comment below, that supports other users in finding this content accessibly. Thanks for being a part of the Blueprint community. We look forward to seeing you soon.